Striking while the iron is hot, am I right? I am recording this on a Razer headset, so the audio is going to be awful, but that never stopped anybody. Let's go! Yeah, okay, I know I'm like 8 years late to the party, but I figure if so many other people can make reviews of old shit, so can I. Just like everybody else on the internet, I feel like my opinion matters. So let's go back about 8 years. December of 2009, Avatar came out and was a booming success. It ran in theaters for what, like 34 weeks? The movie grossed about I can't even read that number. Being the highest grossing film of all time, surpassing Titanic, which was made by the same guy. It got a 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb, 83% on Rotten Tomatoes with critics, and 82% with audiences. So why the hell am I talking about this? Seems damn well received, making back its money of $237 million by around 1,170%. Audiences and critics seem to be on the same page. It made an amount of money enough to make my nose bleed just trying to comprehend it. Then why for years did I feel like it was a guilty pleasure? I was in 9th grade when it came out, so I was 14. I didn't really dive deep into critical analysis of entertainment back then. Me, my entire family, and it appeared that the entire world was enthralled with the spectacle of Avatar. To my knowledge, we had just never seen such amazing CGI, and may I just mention, if this was a Cinema Wins video, I'd add about 10 points just for the fact that most of the CGI still looks photoreal. It even looks better than real! But I digress. Not too far later, people started beating on the parallels, you know, oh, this is just Pocahontas in space, and yeah, it's hard to deny that when it is a foreign power trying to destroy a land of indigenous people who parallel culture and aesthetics of Native Americans and other Aboriginal people. Does anybody else think that this is a tribute to Polynesian Ha, the breath of life? Nobody? Just me? Okay. While the film is not without its own twists and turns, the overarching plot is predictable. The bad guys just want the cold hard cash with no sympathy towards a life that is different from theirs. You know the good guys will win. You know the male lead will get the girl. It's got the lie revealed story that I know the nostalgia critic despises. And, despite my ravenous love for the film, I felt ashamed to say I even liked it. It doesn't matter how insane its success was. The critics that I love to watch, and seemingly much of the people I know, disregard its merits to focus on its flaws. I no longer wanted to talk about my love for the film or even mention it. Now, what I'm taking absolutely forever to get to in this video is specifically the Director's Cut Extended Edition. All this time has passed, and my phase of absolute obsession with this film has been forgotten for years. Then, on a whim, I ended up seeing the Director's Cut, and even though I loved the film to begin with, this extra content brings so much to the film that I can't even believe they cut some of this out. So after like 7 paragraphs of the script, I am now going to dive into the scenes cut from the theatrical release, how they affect the movie, and whether or not I believe they should have been kept in. As well as, you know, also just talking about some things in the movie that I'm passionate about because I just have a lot of opinions. Alright, let's go! First of all, there's the opening. My jaw dropped when I was greeted with 4 minutes of extra exposition. Even though I knew there were at least a couple of deleted scenes from when they were on Pandora, I never expected this. Something I could never defend from the theatrical release was how rushed Jake's introduction was. Boom! He's spouting some pretentiously worded exposition about his twin brother mugged and killed, and now bippity-bop, he's off into space! All we know is that he was an army guy, an edgy blank slate that would eventually be more fleshed out. When the film throws in that obvious commentary, and also at a part I'll get to later, it feels so forced because we didn't actually see any of Earth. This opening scene shows us the overpopulation and people wearing masks. Even some actually wearing legit masks, which is creepy, but at the same time, interesting. Did this need for masks suddenly turn into a fashion statement? Okay, I'm reading too deep into this, but indeed what we see of where Jake lives is an industrialized, polluted land that, while obviously thriving on technology, is uncomfortable and claustrophobic. This makes the open and natural world of Pandora even more juxtaposed and, dare I say, magical. When he breathes the Pandora air, it feels more significant after actually seeing the effects of Earth's pollution. Moments later, we see Jake in a bar, I guess making the most of his paraplegia by doing bar tricks. He went from a Marine to a party guy. While I would have liked to see maybe even some of the very quick flashbacks of him in the military, this is still more effective as is. Then, Jake sees a woman being abused, slapped, her hair pulled. Jake says,
"Strong prey on the weak. just the way things are. Nobody does a damn thing.
And then what does he do? Fucking pulls the chair out from under this asshole and gets into a fight with him. He can't even use his legs, but he's not gonna let this abusive prick get out without some bruises. Without this, Jake's strong conviction and willingness to fight for what is right just feels trite. Oh, triple rhyme. Shit. Like, oh, of course, the good guy's gonna do what is good. This backstory shows that even when he's got a crazy disadvantage, he won't stay complacent when he sees this shit. It even makes that stupid line,
More like a fifth of tequila and an ass kicking.
sound less forced, because it's a reference to the bar scene. After the fight, he is thrown out into a puddle on the streets, along with a nice, somehow not concussive blow to the head with his own wheelchair, and then he just laughs. Who the hell would laugh after that? Well, Jake would. It sets up his personality as someone who doesn't care what happens to him, as long as he gets a little justice. Would I have left those 3 minutes in? Absolutely. Rather than just starting with our jarhead dropout blank slate, those 3 minutes at least establish a character. Now, I just want to say before moving on, this doesn't help everything, that fighting for the freedom and working for the company is pretty cringeworthy. No movie is perfect, of course, and most of the early dialogue is pretty terrible. Especially if he's supposed to be narrating to a video log with people around him. Wouldn't that kind of be awkward, just spouting off dramatic shit? I love this part, okay? Like, even though his paraplegia is not focused on too much, just imagining what he must be feeling and how it affects him when he returns it's potent. Okay, back on track. Ugh, alright. Whenever I watch the movie, I skip through this shit. Like, okay, for a first-time viewer, it sets up the plot, but fuck it. I've seen it so many times. Let's just, Next bit that was cut out just shows these other creatures. It shows more of Grace's knowledge and introduces this animal. These animals are not in the theatrical release because the biggest scene with them that I'll talk about later was cut out. While this is cool to see alien creatures, and I mean, like, you know, seeing made-up animals are my favorite things, I can understand why they cut it. It doesn't further the plot or build character in any significant way, it's just something cool. So the biggest aspect of the film that was left out was the whole story of Grace's school. The school was just mentioned a few times in the theatrical release, and in the grand scheme, that's enough. It explains how the Amatakaya can accept her, and how some Na'vi know English, but the scenes about this plot point bring a whole new weight to the story.
The kids were so bright, eager to learn, picked up English faster than I could teach it.
It shows that the Na'vi were willing and wanting to learn. When it all began, they were accepting of these Earthling aliens. They coexisted. But okay, the Lorax book, I'm a bit torn on. While I would have liked most of this scene to have not been cut, that's not even trying to be subtle. In a way, I kind of respect it. Like, you know, the filmmakers absolutely know their film has an agenda, but it would have probably lost points for a lot of audiences, like that scene with the Tree of Souls did. But I think most of it should have been kept in. Okay, another sidetrack. This film is filled with ex machina stuff that I honestly do not give two fucks about. I have no issue with a little tree spirit landing on Neytiri's arrow. I mean, it's a movie, whatever. But one of the stupidest parts of the film, for me, is when Jake asks why Neytiri decided to save him, and Neytiri says,
"You have a strong heart. No fear."
That is the dumbest shit! Literally, when you get down to it, her reason could be summed up as it was a sign from God not to kill you. I mean, no wonder she would be watching him throughout the rest of the night. Her reasoning is religious, which is way more powerful than you have a strong heart. Wouldn't it have been better if Neytiri did not even say anything in response and just walked away? But nope, stupid contrived line. Anyway, on to the next scene. I can't exactly remember if this was cut or not, but whatever, I'd like to touch on it. It's the little moments like these that I love and will end up talking about throughout this whole video. Jake's reaction to the ground, all this bioluminescence, his smile, his childlike awe, it's so understated, but to me, every little bit counts towards character development. It's only a couple of seconds, they should have kept it in. Or maybe they did, I don't know. I mean, I'm already spending way more time on this than I actually have, so I'm not gonna go back and check. So, we don't really know what the Na'vi think of Jake. I mean, they're obviously intrigued, but you know, they're also afraid, for good reason. Their reactions seem to parallel the chief and whatever comments he makes. They all become silent when Jake arrives for dinner. He's the outsider, the one Chief has said to be wary of. They are suspicious, and they should be. Sky people have been destroying their world and, killing them. It's pretty self-explanatory. But then, what was cut? A cute little Navi child is curious. She just wants to reach out and touch him. It's fucking adorable. Then she's pulled back by presumably her father, and what does Jake do? He chuckles. Jake is in an alien world, thrust into an alien culture where he was never even supposed to be, sent with orders from people who do not even see the Navi as people, but Jake still recognizes that this is just a curious child. And we rarely get to see many Navi children. Why did they keep this out? So the scene continues. While it is not essential to know what happens between eating dinner and Jake waking up out of his avatar, I still love this small scene. Jake has genuine interest in Neytiri. He tries to pronounce her name correctly, and sure, it takes a few times.
Neytiri.
But the only other scene we see where he's trying to learn the language is during a montage, and he doesn't even seem to take pronouncing the words correctly all that seriously. I mean, it's understandable as he proclaims,
The language is a pain.
but this scene still shows his willingness to learn and accept these new people, and Neytiri's expression shows no frustration as she has to repronounce her name to him. The relationship at this point is neutral, but this pleasant encounter is a good foundation to build upon. Also in the theatrical release, we just sort of accept that before the second run, Grace gave him a crash course on the Navi names, and he quickly knows Neytiri's name and you figure, oh well here we go, we already know she's the love interest. But having this scene where they formally meet makes the moment feel more natural. They should have definitely let this whole dinner scene run. So now they finally land on the Hallelujah Mountains. It's nice to have a few seconds of Jake marveling at what he's seeing, but did we really need his narration? It's a movie that crosses fantasy with science fiction. We can suspend our disbelief to just kind of be like, floating mountains? Yeah, sounds about right. We don't need a consistent reminder that Jake isn't a scientist. If I were cutting the movie together, I'd keep it in but take out the narration. In fact, a lot of this movie could do without his narration. Now, this one is small, but again, it's the simple things that I love the most. He's using his new ears, his nose, the alien aspects of this new body that were previously unfathomable. One of the things I've never heard anyone really talk about is the fact that, well, Jake fucking became another species. He's the same person, yeah, but by the end he's no longer a human. Seeing his transformation is fascinating and satisfying as an audience member rooting for him. It's like a couple of seconds, it should have been left in. Now this is just a cute little scene. We already know Jake's curiosity and how he likes to touch foreign things. That suddenly seeing Neytiri jump into the fun is a nice little slice of character development. The two continue to interact off each other, laughing and honing that connection between them. I do really love this scene, but in regards to if they should have kept it, I understand removing it for the sake of time. There's still plenty of other scenes where they build their relationship. Okay, this whole scene was boiled down to a clip in a montage, and it's honestly a shame. Yes, it's a very long scene, but it holds so much important story. For one, Grace reminds Jake and the audience that he is not his avatar, he is still a human. Jake talks about he successfully hunted and ate that day, slightly bragging about it, but he has a right to. But Grace reminds him of his reality. The scene also continues to build on the relationship between Jake and Grace. You get some of it in the theatrical release, and I guess that's enough, but it is so much stronger here. And then, the most emotional part. Going back to the story of Grace's school, she explains the tragedy that happened. Leaving all of this out may still allow the overarching plot to remain fine, but had this been in the film, the conflict between the good and bad guys, for lack of better words, becomes a little more deep in ways I'll go into more later. So the Navi set a bulldozer on fire, and the military retaliated. They didn't need to destroy the school, it wasn't any stupid unobtainium deposit or whatever. It was out of spite for the destroyed equipment and casualties, to kill the Navi that fought back. You also learn that the school was open for 10 years, and the students used to call Grace Mother. Even when the Navi learned of Jake's betrayal, they may bind both him and Grace, but once she is freed and they are walking away from the wreckage, Grace is ejected from her avatar and the Navi carry her with them. It is much easier to believe that they would go through the trouble for her, knowing the relationship Grace had with the Navi. Also, it explains why they would be so concerned that she was dying. Despite its length, that scene deserved to be shown. Alright, another sidetrack because this is one of the reasons I absolutely love this movie. When Jake says,
That's right. You're mine.
to the Ekran, which, by the way, it's a fucking dragon and I will call it that for the rest of this review, is really a moment that I think solidifies Jake's place in the world. Through all he's learned, Sahelu, the language, how to hunt, how to use his enhanced senses, and that awesome animalistic hiss, the moment he gets his own goddamn dragon, a dragon which, by the way, would never fly with another hunter besides him after this, is the moment I truly believe he turns. Watching the phenomena of this movie, it really makes you want to experience it yourself and live there. If I got to have my own fucking dragon, I wouldn't go back to my previous life. In Jake's previous life, he was a paraplegic doing bar tricks on a polluted Earth. Your mind is a realization. That's where he belongs. Okay, enough of that tangent before I have a fucking heart attack. Let's move on. Oh boy, here we go. The scene is amazing. Remember those animals introduced in that earlier deleted scene? Now we get an intense hunt on Dragonback. It's filled with adrenaline, action, and it's amazing seeing Jake be a badass. I love this scene, but when it comes down to should they have included it, well, obviously a lot of these scenes, if not all, were taken out for the sake of time. This is a very long scene. Continuing the movie past it, we can fill in the blanks that he started hunting and don't really need it to keep the story moving forward. It would have been fantastic to see it in theaters, but keeping it out to make them film shorter is totally understandable. You should still watch it though. Oh, also, Neytiri shouting "Hell yeah!" sounds pretty stupid, but the way I'd like to see it, Neytiri has been exclaiming and cheering in her own language, while Jake has to learn that. I highly doubt Neytiri learned "hell yeah" in Grace's school, it's human jargon. Neytiri just hears a cheer of victory from Jake and joins in using his own language. Just as Jake learns from her, Neytiri is starting to accept to learn from him. So there you go, there's my excuse for why that line sucked. Oh my god, he grabs her tail. Jake, you flirtatious fuck. Alright, here we go. The scene that everybody loves to mock. Ponytail fucking. But honestly, I find it fascinating, and I think it would have been cool to keep in. I mean, think about it. They all have these things that can connect to the brains and nervous systems or whatever, to different animals. We've seen it tons of times before. Why is this so weird? Of course they would use them on each other in some way. Connecting together like that then means that both can feel what the other is feeling physically and emotionally, which would explain why they just kind of caress each other and rub each other's faces for the entire runtime of that scene. I know it's easy to be immature about alien sex, but come on. I highly doubt that sex is just putting their ponytails together, because obviously these humanoids can have babies, and do you really think that sperm would come out of those things? They put them in other animals, that wouldn't make sense! Anyway, I can kind of see why they would remove it, seeing as so many people who did see it mock it, but I enjoy it. You feel the romance, the literal connection these two feel for each other, and as far as love scenes go, I think it was tasteful, imaginative, and sensual. Also, that look on Jake's face, god damn, the acting gets better as this movie goes on. So, what's the best thing to wake up to after a night of coitus? Seeing a sacred place of the Ermetikaya being bulldozed! And we have to see the Na'vi retaliate, you see the fire and the carnage, all of the military there, dead. This scene obviously runs smoothly paralleling Grace's story, so it would have made sense to appear should those other scenes have been included. But even if they were, the movie would have still been fine without it. For this, I say take it or leave it. Oh, and remember when I talked about the conflict between the good and bad guys and how I talk about it again? Well, here it is. Just like how the school was destroyed, the sacred land was destroyed to
trigger a response.
While yes, the bad guys are bad because of greed, one-dimensional and easy to project hatred onto, this adds a bit of an extra layer. Exactly what they're targeting. They destroy Home Tree to get the unobtainium underneath, but they go after these sacred places, destroy the school, and have a witch hunt for Jake because all the Na'vi fought back. Alright, I'm better now. So before I get back into the deleted scenes, I have a few more things to say. First off, I love that the avatars have 5 fingers when the Na'vi have 4. Details, man. And then, this climax. I do believe climax is the best word because it's like a mind orgasm. I get pumped every time I see it to the point of tears in my eyes. The music and the action is just too engrossing and epic. I could talk at length about it for hours, but I'll just sum it up by saying, You cannot for 1 second tell me that seeing a giant dragon fling a military aircraft into a mountain isn't fucking awesome. Then, this is arguably my favorite part of the movie. Like, fuck yeah, man! Pandora does not just belong to the Na'vi, it also belongs to all these animals. And they're like, fuck you guys, you're destroying my home, now I'll destroy your body. God damn, I am tearing up just watching this movie again to write this script. That is some Jurassic Park shit right there. The entire planet is fighting back. How could any fan of action not love this scene? Alright, back to the deleted scenes. They find Tsute. I'm fucking amazed that he's even still alive, but they did show him earlier falling onto some leaves, breaking his fall, like the thing that Neytiri did. Also the whole, they are very hard to kill. This is where Tsute relinquishes his place as chief to Jake as he is dying, and asks Jake to honorably kill him. God damn, that is poignant, and it's probably the best acting I saw from that character. This is another part where I think taking it out of the film was fine, because we just kind of assume after being shot multiple times and falling out of an aircraft he's dead and gone, but it is a nice extra bit to see. So, that's it. I have a lot of opinions, and here's the product of that. In closing, I'd like to retouch on some previous points and some big criticisms that other people have made of the movie. I've heard some people say that this is a white person infiltrating a different culture, and a lot of people saying this is just Pocahontas in space, and I'm like, okay, calm the hell down. Did John Smith and Disney's Pocahontas completely convert to a new culture, religion, and a way of life, then use his voice and passion to assemble an army of 50 different clans to drive out the invading people he was not a part of? No. Jake started out infiltrating the Na'vi, but by the end, as I said, he is not even human anymore. He's not just some white guy, he's technically blue. He was a human who has completely transformed into the Na'vi species. When he says, "This is our land!" It's true, he is one of them. When he hisses at Colonel Quaritch, I always get chills. Also, did you know that that's that guy's name? Because I didn't. And may I just say, Neytiri looking at Jake's human body with the same love and compassion is... I'm just a sucker for that kind of stuff. Also, had she even ever seen his human body before? Like, I know she knows about that technology and sort of how it works, but had she even seen him? You kind of have to wonder what was going through her head. So despite its flaws, a cliche premise, some awkward dialogue, predictable outcomes, and one-dimensional villains, this movie is in my top 5 easily. It evokes emotion from me every single time. I am never desensitized to the empathy I feel for these characters. It's pure eye candy that still remains just as impressive today as it was years ago. The score is so underappreciated too, that choir makes everything more epic. I have to say, if someone doesn't like this film, maybe they should give the director's cut a try.